Continuing in the series, Exceeding Abundantly Above, I want to teach from the topic, the unprofitable servant and the righteous and his righteous Lord. It is a fact that offenses will come. Now, when we look at offenses here, what offenses here is speaking of is traps or snares, things that are placed in the way of a person who is walking in God's will that are intended for that person to stumble or fall. We can simply say stumbling blocks will come. Everybody say stumbling blocks will come. Now, these things will also happen for his disciples. But notice what he says. He says, but woe, grief unto the one through whom they come. Grief to the person who brings about offenses. It were better, it's more profitable for that person that a millstone. Now, this word millstone, I want you to get the effects of this word millstone. Because there are different types of millstones. There are millstones that people might have for their household, but the Greek word used here has to do with a millstone that would be turned by a donkey. If you look for the Greek definition, it would say one that is turned by an ass. And if I could just give you a picture of a millstone, you'd have a nether stone, the nether stone being the lower stone, round, so big, and there's an area in the middle where they would place the wheat. And then you'd have this huge stone that sits up, usually a millstone. There are going to be two stones. There's the nether stone that you're going to set the wheat on, and then you have the big stone, looks like a big wheel. And there'll be a very large pole. It looks somewhat like a short telephone or telegram pole, electrical pole that will be sticking out of it. This thing is so heavy and so it took so much force that a donkey, a beast of burden, would have to turn this stone in order to crush the grain. And so he's saying it's better that a stone that is driven by an ass be put around your neck, driven by a donkey, and you thrown into the sea. It's more profitable for you than offending one of his little ones. Then, once again, I want to go deep with this word offend, because many times we say people have offended us, but if they haven't led you off the path of righteousness, how bad can the offense be? Jesus here, it is offense when you lead a person off the path of righteousness. Are you hearing me in here? And so he's teaching his disciples. So he tells them here, you take heed to yourselves. You be attentive to yourselves. And now he goes on. He says, listen, if your brother trespasses against you, if your brother sins against you, rebuke him, show him his fault. Show him his fault if he sins against you, if he trespasses against you. And then if he repents, if he afterward considers what he has done, okay? He says, then forgive him. In other words, leave it be, let it go. And then he brings out a statement 7 times. And here, this in itself alludes to that which would be exasperating. Imagine somebody offending you 7 times in one day. That would be irritating. That would be exasperating. That would be annoying. That would most likely make you angry. If they offend you to the point of anger, if they offend you to such a point that you are agitated and irritated, Jesus said, if they repent, if they reconsider, let it go. Now, when he says this, the apostles don't just say, okay, we got it. You're the master, you're the teacher. We got it. We'll do just that. When he says this, there's probably a pause. Remember, they're humans. I want to help you. There are times when you go through stuff, when you struggle. Remember, the apostles were humans. And they realize what he's asking them. Ooh. And they say, Lord, increase our faith. In other words, we're going to need a whole lot of faith to do this. But then Jesus says something. And what he says when he says to them, if you have the faith as of a grain of mustard seed, you can say to the sycamore or the sycamore tree. When you think about this, he is not dealing with the quantity of faith, but the quality of your faith. Whenever we do something, we accomplish it successfully, we've achieved the right end result from what we set out to do, we usually expect to be rewarded, do we not? If my child graduate with high honors, I expect them to be awarded. And if they're awarding everybody and they overlook my child, I will be incensed. I will be burning because they did not get what they deserved. If I am working and my supervisor gives someone else a raise, and it appears we're doing the same, I'm doing a little better, I am incensed because I feel overlooked. Am I hitting it with you here? In the church, if I'm doing something and people don't notice me, I feel overlooked. They notice everybody else, but they do not notice me. I deserve to be noticed. He asks another question. Does he thank that servant? Does he thank that servant? In other words, does he show gratitude? Does he act in a way that shows graciousness for what he has done? Does he thank that servant because he did the things that were commanded him? Because he did the things that were arranged for him, because he did the things that were appointed to him, because he did the things that were prescribed to him, because he did the things that were ordained for him to do? And then Jesus says this. These are the words of Jesus. I'll just bring it to you, but translated form. He says, I think not. Jesus says this now. So when you get mad with Jesus. This is not me. Jesus said this. He said, I think not. I think not. When you have performed all those things that are appointed to you, that are prescribed for you, that are ordained for you to do. Wow. Say, we are unprofitable servants. Man, that's hard to say, isn't it? What he's bringing out is of yourself. The things that you do, you could not do without his power. How many people in here believe you have a spiritual gift? Raise your hand. This is no trick question. Raise your hand. I hope all of you got them up there. It's used for the profitability of all in the body, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 12, right? It's used to profit all. Where'd you get the gift from? If he didn't give it to you, what use would you be to the body? But by his grace, in him we live and move and have our being. Brethren, beloved, we are persuaded of better things of you. We have confidence that there are better things of you and things that accompany salvation. God does what he does for you because of the fact that there are things that tie in with your salvation. There are things that are connected to your salvation. There are things that hold to your salvation. And he said, this is what we're speaking about, because God is not unrighteous. God is not unjust. God is not treacherous. God rewards you because he's righteous, not because you deserve it. But he rewards us because he's righteous. He rewards us because he's a just God. Am I talking to anybody in here? He is not unrighteous to forget. In other words, he will not lose out of his mind what you've done. You ever done something for somebody and it's like they didn't acknowledge, didn't notice, forgot all about it the next day, and you get all broken up? Let me help you here. You did it because you are a servant of the Lord. He is not unrighteous to forget your work and labor of love. What you do, you ought to be like the Lord and do what you do because you're doing it out of a heart of love. It is love that moves God to show you some grace. It is love that moves God to give you favor. If we get to the point, and I'm not saying you're not there, some of you might be there, all of you may be there, but if we get to the point where we do what we do because we love God, you'll see God do more and more in your life. You're not doing it. You've seen people, you've heard people do, I don't play that kind of stuff. You've heard people do offerings and say, the Lord is saying if you give such and such and such in 6-7 days, now what they're doing is they've got you doing some type of work, expecting God to owe you something. That is not biblical. Don't you ever go for it again. That is not biblical. Somebody say that's not biblical if you believe it. It is not biblical. But how is it? How is it? You deserve something. Well, you deserve to be in poverty because you deserve to be in hell. And you deserve to be going to the lake of fire. That's what we deserved. I think sometimes we forget it. But God, who is rich in mercy, the mercy which he loved with us, while we were yet sinners, he died for us. And so there are things that accompany, that's all you got to remember. Things accompany salvation. Everybody, if you can say this, there are things which accompany salvation. See, if there are things that accompany salvation, I don't have to look at what's supposed to come my way when I do what I do. All I need to know is things accompany salvation. Do what I do because it's been appointed to me to do. It's been assigned for me to do.